email on my cell phone. Please feel free to call me and I'll get it to you.
Thank you. Okay, if I can call forward now the Ontario Association of Career Colleges. John, if you'd like to come forward, and Mr. Kitchin.
Got it. Yep.
Mr. Kitchin, thank you for joining us today. Just to let you know, on your left side of the government members, we've got Sue Wong, Stephen Del Duca, and Vic Dillon. On your right-hand side are the members of the opposition party, Catherine Fife, Michael Prue, Monty McNaughton, Jane McKenna, and Peter Sherman. And your presentation, you're allowed up to 15 minutes for your presentation. If you leave a little time at the end for any questions, those questions will be coming from the Liberal Party to your left.
Thank you.
And the time is all yours. And John, good to see you again.
Thank you. Nice to be here. And Paul has the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for giving us this opportunity to make a presentation today. We made a written submission that we've brought for you, and I want to touch on some of the highlights in that paper. But first of all, I should introduce myself. My name is Paul Kitchin. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Association of Career Colleges that represents post-secondary institutions in the province of Ontario that are registered under the Private Career Colleges Act 2005 to be able to offer programs of study that have been approved through the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities. Our paper gives you a background on the career college sector for those of you that are not familiar with the sector. We talk about the current economic impact of the sector. We talk about some trends that we see that are going to impact the demand for post-secondary education in this province in the years to come. We've touched on briefly some financial implications of that and possible ways that the career college sector can help. And finally, we wanted to touch on a couple of issues where there's systemic issues, where programs and policies provide differential treatment to career college students that in fact can create barriers to access and hamper the ability of our sector to contribute and help. What I wanted to start off with to say is what we're really talking about here today is a way to save taxpayer dollars, and I'll get into that. The background piece, the career college sector, career colleges started in Ontario 145 years ago. That's a full 100 years before we had a public community college system. Today there are over 600 campuses operating in 70 communities across the province. We're training 67,000 students every year in 5,000 programs, and our career college sector employ about 12,000 staff people across the province. I mentioned the 67,000 students. There would be, with a graduation rate of 80% or better, that would equate to about 50,000 graduates coming out of programs and ready for the workforce every year. With those kinds of stats, we felt it was important to make some sort of a statement about the economic impact of the sector. In 2012, a research firm called Higher Education Strategy Associates did a study of the career college sector, and I'm going to touch on a couple of the highlights that came out of that. One of the first things they did was do a comparison of the cost to the taxpayer per graduate from the community college system versus that from the career college system. In that analysis, they took a look at operating grants, they took a look at student loan funding, they took a look at second career funding, they took a look at tax credits, educational tax credits, and at the end of the day, their numbers showed that the average cost to produce a graduate from the community college is roughly $35,000. Whereas the cost to produce a graduate from the career college system is about $3,700. So it's just over 10% of the cost. So as you can see, there's a huge cost saving there. They went on to rejig the numbers to do a comparison on a cost per month per graduate as well. And once again, that comparison came out that career college cost was about 18% of community college costs. So if we take a look at that, and very conservatively with those kinds of numbers, I think we're lowballing it if we say that per graduate there's a savings of $20,000 per grad when they make the choice that a career college is the best option for them in terms of taking their post-secondary training. You multiply that times the 50,000 grads that come out of the career college system every year. At minimum, the career college sector is saving the taxpayers $1 billion. And I want to stress that probably is lowballing. It probably is a higher number, but we'll go with $1 billion. So that's huge, and I want you to keep that in mind as you're deliberating over the budget and over expenditures and that understand that there is a resource there that can help you tackle some of the hard decisions that needs to be made. We looked at some trends, and those trends are telling us very clearly that there's going to be increased demand on the post-secondary education system in this province over the years to come. A few examples would be we know that 70% of the jobs are going to require some level of post-secondary education, so there is a goal to get the credential attainment to 70%. We know that there's huge interest in bringing international students into Ontario institutions because that brings some economic benefit to the province. We know that laid off workers are going to continue to need reskilling and upgrading of their skills to be able to get back into the workforce. We know that there's emerging sectors like the green sector and areas like infrastructure renewal where we're going to continue to need folks trained to be able to handle those kinds of jobs. Of particular interest to me is the fact that there's a recognition that inclusivity of the groups of folks who've been marginalized in terms of the workforce, people like Aboriginal people, persons with disabilities, newcomers to Canada. We're going to have to do a better job in this province of training those folks and getting them prepared for the workforce. And finally, we know there's going to be increased demand for online learning for folks who are still employed and want to study in evenings or on weekends or things like that. So all in all, the message is there's going to be a bigger job to do. So it begs the question, how are we going to afford to do that? And I mean, there are certainly financial implications, and again, I would stress with you that the career college sector has the capacity to grow, to expand, and help to meet that need and offset some of those ongoing costs. So I think we need to take a look at that. I know in the recent white paper put out by the PC party, they talked about a role for career colleges and talked about the ability to meet that increased demand, and we certainly agree with that position. However, there are from time to time some systemic issues that create some barriers for career college folks because they're treated in a differential manner, and that would absolutely hamper our ability to continue to help out economically with the well-being of the province. And I'll give you two quick examples, and I'm hoping that this committee may be able to do something in those areas. But the first is around the Ontario tuition grant that was announced a little over a year ago. To our dismay, we learned that career college students would not be eligible to apply for that. And what that really comes down to is if I was at a career college, I wouldn't be able to apply. If I went to a community college, I could apply. I'm the same person. I have the same needs. So there's a disconnect there. And in fact, if that then turns somebody to make a decision to go to their second or third or fourth best choice of training because there's some dollars there, then we don't believe that makes an awful lot of sense. So we would certainly ask that in this round, as discussions go on, if the Ontario tuition grant topic comes up, that a move be made to include career college students. We estimate that could cost about $2 million, maybe up to $3 million. It's not a huge dollar amount, particularly when you take into account the millions of dollars that the government has spent over the last several months promoting this program on TV and radio to try to attract more people to take up the program. And the other comparison I would make is the grant is about $775, or that's roughly what it would be for career college folks. And you compare that against the $20,000 per graduate saving that I talked about earlier. To me, it makes an awful lot of sense. The other issue where there's differential treatment is with the second career program right now. Under the current criteria, there's a $10,000 cap on the tuition that the program will recognize for career college programs, and there's no similar cap on the community college programs. And thank you. I just got the warning 1 minute.
No. 5,
Okay.
10.
Okay. So what that can do, and we've seen examples of that where it has again caused a student to make a decision that they were going to go to a career college, and they found out there was a cap on the funding, so they couldn't get their first choice. They had to take a look at a second or third choice and go where the funding was there. So we think that's inequitable and in fact a little bit discriminatory against career college students. We would like to see either the cap completely removed from career colleges. I'm not sure that that's realistic, but at least have it raised. We're suggesting $14,000 rather than $10,000, and that fits in line with another criteria in the program that looks at $14 per hour, and we're saying a diploma program on the Ontario Qualifications Framework is usually geared for about 1,000 hours of instruction. $14,000 would make sense. If that's not doable, then we think that we should level the playing field and community college programs should be capped at $10,000 as well for the program. And the last piece on that program is that the cap was put in place about 3.5 years ago, and there's been no increase in it, and we would think at minimum there should be a cost of living index increase on the cap to keep pace. So that gives you a quick run through of our paper. I mean, in summary, we think the career college sector has a lot to contribute to this province. We can help deal with the deficit situation right now. We can help to deal with the increased demand that's anticipated for post-secondary education. We need you to think about that, and we also need to have equitable policies in terms of our students and equitable treatment for our students. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions.
That's great, Paul. Thank you. You've left about 2.5 minutes. The government, Sue?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just need to hear a little bit more about, you mentioned in your presentation that you have 67,000 students in your career colleges. Can you share with us the type of students we're talking about? Are they from Ontario, or are they some of the demographic of your students?
Primarily the vast majority are Ontario students. And it's interesting, we get asked that about, who are our students, and there's probably 5 or 6 really good answers to that. Because of the nature of the delivery, where we try to meet the needs of the student, and there's things like programs offered in the morning or in the afternoon or the evening or on weekends, we try to fit the needs. So we have a number of sole support parents will take training. They want to get back into the labor force. We do a fair amount of retraining of laid off unemployed workers. We have a number of community college or university graduates who've got a degree and they want to come back and get some skill training so that they can get into the labor force. So we've got those folks as well. It's a wide spectrum. The main difference, I guess, for us is we have an older student. The average age would be in the late 20s, 28, 29 years old. There are some schools that do a fair amount of training with recent high school graduates, but by and large, we're adult trainers, adult retrainers.
Ms. Wong, you would have 7 colleges in your riding, and at any point in time, if you'd like to visit and tour those colleges, we'd be more than happy to accommodate.
I'm also very interested to know the success rates of your students or the graduate of your program in terms of employability and meeting the skill gap that we constantly been hearing about in the hearings?
The graduation rate is about 80%. The graduate employment rate is about 84% at this point across the entire sector. There are a number of programs that have third-party accreditation. Somebody mentioned the Law Society of Upper Canada in an earlier presentation. They have an accreditation program for programs like paralegal, and career colleges must go through that third-party accreditation so that folks coming out of those kinds of programs absolutely have the skills that the industry is looking for. The other thing that career colleges do widespread is they involve employers in program advisory committees that help with the development of curriculum. They will meet every 6 to 12 months and review curriculum and make recommendations for changes that need to be made to the curriculum to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the labor force.
That's great. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for coming today, John. Thank you too.
Thank you.